Hello everybody, it's Lola. I'm in the kitchen today, and as you can see I'm kind of poking at some dough. This was some dough that I made yesterday and put in the fridge. It rose quite well, so I'll do another video sometime on the way I make my dough, because I've always had the worst luck when it came to bread making until someone sent me a book that I read it and I was like, really, what? And it's a book and it makes these people, and they learn to make really wet dough, and you don't need it, and I still need it some, but they don't need it, and it works out amazing. And so I've been following recipes in this book, and my dough's been turning out amazing. So let's see, get rid of that bowl. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to make bagels. This is a 12 grain mix that I've made. And, well, it's not a mix, I made it from scratch, but it's a 12 grain, and it has some just enriched hard flour and a little bit of whole wheat in there. And I'm going to show you how I go about making bagels. So this is my dough, and I'm going to be making them in about I think about a third a pound this time. Let me grab a knife. So I'm not exactly sure. You see, I've protected the counter with this amazing little, it's by Donesco. It's a kind of plastic, it's a cutting board sort of, but it's a rolling board. It has these really great circles and different measurements so that when you're rolling out pie dough, you know exactly how big it's going to be. But let's pull my little scale over. So that's about a third a pound. And if you're really smart, what you'll do is you'll cut all your dough balls first, and then you'll go ahead and shape them. But I'm just going to show you, and then I'm going to go ahead and do it. So just, you cut your dough. It's, I don't know, it's like a disc, about a quarter or a third a pound, pardon me. And I just kind of shape it into a circle, pinch the middle out, and then stretch it a bit. And there you go. Bagel ready to boil. If you want it to be, you could stretch it out more, so it has about a 2-inch hole maybe. But I like mine to be almost roll-like, and that's okay. While I finish prepping the rest of these, and I'll show you a cute one that you can make after, I'll tell you as well about my oven. I have preheating to 500 degrees, and that seems really hot, but I'm using a baking stone, and it works really nice. And it's not exactly like it's not like a wood-fired stove at all. It's not, but it gives you a really nice crust and a really great taste of the bagel. So that's how I'm doing it. You would preheat the oven to 500. Your baking stone has to be in there from when it's cold. It has to heat up from that, because you never want to crack it. And then after it reaches 500, you want to heat it for let it sit for about 30 more minutes to make sure that the stone is completely heated through and evenly done, so you don't have any cold spots. I also have a pot of water on the stove, and it's just a large pot because we're going to be boiling the bagels. That's what makes them bagels, as opposed to just kind of bread rolls, right? We're going to be boiling them, and I have just a big pot of water coming to a boil, and I'm going to be adding, because I don't have lye, and I don't know anyone who would go out and buy lye just to make bagels. It seems like a silly thing. I'm going to be using baking soda because it does make the water alkaline, and it does help create that yummy crust on the bagel. So let me get some of this done, and then I will be back to explain some more and show some more fun. Okay, so I have the balls all weighed out now. I'm making 8 bagels. There's still a little dough left, but I always leave extra dough for my mom, because she likes to take a little piece and flatten it out and fry it in a frying pan and eat it with molasses. It's a thing we've been doing our entire lives, and I love it too. But so as you can see, I'm going to show you again. So let's say this is just your hunk of dough. It's about a third a pound. Again, you kind of you don't need a lot of flour, because it's chilled, and you're using light fingers, like touching lightly and never like really grabbing it and squeezing too much. But I'm turning it into kind of semi-hockey puck, but thinner in the middle, and then when you get nice and thin, that's when you kind of do a little pinch and pull. and it tears the dough. And then you just even it out a little. And again, if it sticks to your hands, you can put a little dough on your hands. Also, ice cold water. If your hands are just like, you dip them in ice cold water and work quickly, but that will also gum up your dough a bit, so you have to, that's more of a slightly advanced trick maybe, I don't know. I'll do it if the dough's really wet, that can help, or if the dough's actually really dry and you want to add a bit of liquid, like a bit of moisture without pouring it on and just making a mess. Anyway, so here you go, see, one of the tricks is, say you had like just a big, it's like a big gross piece, like, not gross, but you know what I mean, messed up. Just keep, it's almost like a kneading motion, so it needs a bit of flour so it doesn't stick. But I squeeze it a bit and pull it around. Squeeze it a bit and pull it around, and you're still trying not to push your hands too hard into it so that it doesn't, it's really hard to explain until you have it in your hands and you start playing with it, right? But as you do this, you're kind of pushing it under, so as you can see, it's all going into the middle, but then it creates this. So let me put a bit more flour on it, just a tiny bit, and then flatten it out with my thumbs in the middle, flattening it out into that disc until it gets thin enough. Then do the little pinch and pull, squeeze the hole open, and there you go. It's pretty awesome, eh? Alright, now I'm going to show you how to make a cute little fancier one, and that you still need whatever size you choose, because you can make these bagels huge. You can, the recipe actually called for using a half-pound size, and I just found these were giant, and I didn't want that much bagel at one time. So the best part of doing this is you know what goes into your food, and you're able to make sizes that work for you. So you take it, but you want to cut it in half, because we're going to be playing with this a little more. What you want to do is kind of roll it out, and it's because of the way the dough works, and it, you know, again, you're using light fingers because it's sticking to me a bit, but you want to roll it and pull it, and it's so elasticy that it doesn't always feel like it's going to stretch, but you just keep playing with it. Don't be scared. If it rips apart, just smush it back together and start over. It's not the end of the world. You never have to worry about that stuff. What's the worst that can happen? You burn your food, eat burnt food, throw it out, start over, do something. Doesn't taste, you made a recipe and you don't like it, big deal, throw it out, start a new recipe. Food. I know it can be disappointing, especially when you put a lot of effort into something, or you're really excited because it's going to maybe be a new dish that you were super excited about. It can be disappointed, but you can't let that stuff get to you. So that one's pulling out nicely. You want to get them to be similar sizes. Take the edges, I kind of pinch them around each other. And then I just pull and twist at the same time. Pull it over. This is where it gets funny because there's really no great way. I just keep making sure I pull and I twist so that it doesn't get too thick. Over, I'm going to keep pulling and twisting until I get it as close to the end. And then I'm going to... so we had a little technical difficulties, and I didn't realize it stopped recording. So let's start this over. We have our two. Put it together, have them stretched out, and I just kind of keep twisting them over on itself. Well, like I said, like I twist it, because it gets really thick in the middle there, right? So pull it as I twist, just keep pulling as I twist, and then bring the ends around and kind of twist them under. You can get your fingers a little wet to help that stay, but there you go. A little round one. Again, you just take, this was one that I cut in half already, and you just kind of, I find it easy to squeeze it out like this than to roll it sometimes, because the dough does stick to the, you have to use a lot more flour, and sometimes it's nice just not to have to use a lot of flour. Again, if you let the bits that get on your hand get dry, it will stick more to your hands, so that's why it's a good idea to move quickly to get this all done as quickly as possible. Again, we're going to stick the edges together. Just going to wrap it around on itself. And I'm sure that people who do this for a living are so good and they know tricks about this, but it turns out nice when I do this. It's just kind of nice to have a slightly different looking bagel. Give it a pull around your hand, pinch the edges. I like to just kind of squeeze it around so that you're kind of distributing the dough enough. And there you go. And as you can see, sometimes the way that they pinch and they go, I try to make a little heart bagel because it worked one time by fluke. As they sit here, they, you know what I mean? They spread out a bit, they rise slightly. So I just go back and keep trying to make them. The key is to try to make them as even in their circle as possible in your like bagel round, because that way you don't have one big high side when you go to toast them or anything. All right, so next we're going to, before we boil them, I want to make sure that the toppings for the everything bagel are okay. So let's see, let's just, if I can adjust this slightly there. Okay, so why buy the toppings if you can make your own? Because you can buy it in stores, you can order it online, you can get some stores, not everywhere, but I'm just going to make it. So what I have first is, actually I'm going to use the poppy seed first. So I just went to our local bulk barn and bought some poppy seed. And so normally I would have cut the bag open, but I don't have scissors nearby, so I'm just going to pour the poppy seed into a dish. And I found just like a kind of little low baking dish. And the next is sesame seeds. Now you can toast these first, but I'm not going to bother. I still think it's great. So then we have the sesame seeds. Now here comes the yummy parts. I have some big chunky minced garlic, and I normally wouldn't use like the desiccated garlic like this, but it makes it really nice. I don't want a lot of this because I don't want big pieces of garlic, and I'm going to add other garlic flavor. But granulated onion, it's almost like a powder except for not, because it's granulated. Like, it's a little different than the powdered garlic and stuff, and so it doesn't have a really bad mouthfeel, maybe is the word. And as you can see, I have no real measurements, and this is just a big bottle of garlic powder that we add to stuff. So add some of that. And the other big thing is salt. Now kosher salt is really the one you want to go with, because it's going to have a slightly bigger, nicer crystal, but I have some sea salt, so it's still going to be yummy. It's a little bit better than just a table salt, so I add some of that in there. And I'm really bad with measurements, like I said, and I like pepper, so I'm going to add some pepper in. So I'm just going to grate some pepper really quick, and this not so much because I'm not trying to make it spicy, just trying to make it delicious, right? So there. So you want to mix this up well, because what we're going to be doing is after the bagels come out of the bath, they get dipped in this. And there we go. It doesn't look like much, but that's our topping mix there. Give it a smell. Smells garlicky. Delicious. All right. So it's almost time to boil. I'm going to get it all boil. I'm going to get it all set up, and we will be back soon. So I did want to do just a quick off of it. I wanted to show you. This is an old pizza pan that I had before I got my baking stone, and I use this as my pizza, as the peel. I don't have a special wood peel, which is like the paddle that they use to like put things in and out of a big stone oven or a big clay oven. But this works quite well, and I have some cornmeal on top of there. It may look like it's gross, but that's actually just kind of that's almost like when you season your cast iron pan or something. Those aren't actual bits, those are just left on there. So I have this ready. I have prepped a little spot for when I take the bagels out of the water. And here you can see two kind of like kitchen tea towels. I do not use these for drying dishes and stuff. Well, I do use them for drying dishes, but not for like cleaning up spills or anything in the kitchen. These are only really for drying stuff. I just don't like the idea of towels sitting around. I use a lot of paper towels and a lot of those like wipes, and it's the worst environmental thing I do, but it's what I do. So here are my bagels. They've been sitting a bit, so I'll have to squeeze, just prep them before I put them in the water. If they're going to be sitting like they were for me just for a few minutes, you'll want to make sure that you floured underneath, because they will stick to the surface. Even if it's like a nice little thing like this, it still needs some flour. And let me show you my pot. Now this has already come to a boil. I've added a bunch of baking soda because it just changes, like I said, the alkalinity. Some big places use actual like commercial lye, and I wasn't going out to buy lye. The book that I have calls for malt powder. but I haven't been to a brewery shop to get malt powder, so I use, instead of malt powder in the bagels, I use honey, and then I use baking soda in the water. If you want to, you can use honey in the water. It just gives it slightly sweeter, almost like a Montreal bagel type flavor. And then in the oven, you can see, oh, it's so hot. It's been about 40 minutes now since it got to 500, so the stone is good. Before I put the bagels in, I will put a bit of cornmeal on the stone, but not to the very last second, because it does toast instantly and go. So what I'm going to do is try to set this up solid so I can show you guys the rest. Alright, so as you can see too, I have this nice like basket strainer, which works really well for this. You could use almost anything, but this I find works really well. So let's go. Let's just grab one. What I do, take it, drop it in. You see how it's nice and heavy. Put it in for maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, depending on how chewy you kind of want the bagel. But really the rule of thumb is when it comes back up to the top, it's pretty much ready. So we'll just wait for that to float. Let's throw another one in there. See, it kind of goes to the bottom. This guy here, I like to kind of flip it over just so they both get both. It's just me. I'm very thorough when it comes to this. So then this guy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain him a little bit, strain him there. Then I'm going to take him over and I'm going to drop him right on that paper dish towel, that clean dish towel that I'd had. And let this guy flip over for a second. This guy's going to be really nice for a breakfast sandwich. You can tell he's very little hole in the middle. And you can plan your bagels out that way too, because I really love a breakfast sandwich on a bagel. And so I'll plan the bagel size. It's like the perfect size for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can bring you right over without shaking it too much. So I can then show you this part. How's this? All right. So once it's here, and this is when you got to kind of work, all right, and if you have sensitive hands, put some gloves on. I just flip it over. I put the side that is going to be the top right down flat into it. And then I sprinkle just a little bit of the topping on the bottom because I want it to get a nice flavor. And then I lift it up. And if I think it needs a bit more, I might like sprinkle in, but. And then as you can see, I just lay it on the sheet and let it sit there. So let's try this again. Take this one. This is going to be my top, so I flip it over in there. And the first time that I made these, I just did both sides right into the topping, and they were so covered, and I loved it, but my family was like, maybe that's a little overkill. All right. So then, once you get those two, I find that I do them in pairs, and that lets me put them into the oven, get the next ones prepped, kind of turn them around the baking stone so that I'm keeping track, because they take about 12 minutes to cook. So let me show you putting them into the oven. That's a lot of fun. Okay, so now you can see I'm throwing, I have to force myself not to reach in. You can see it starts to smoke already. And then I take my bagels, I just give them kind of a little shake to make sure they're going to fall off. And then right over to the corner. Done. Close the door, timer on for 12 minutes. I keep an eye on them because sometimes they're hotter and whatnot, but that's all it is. And so now it is time to pull some of these out. As you can see, I'd put two more in there, and these ones are the newer ones. Here were the original ones that I had. Let's bring this up so you can see. Do you see how nice that is? And all I'm going to do is I have a rack right on top of the stove. I'm going to take the two that are completely done out, kind of move these two over. And I'm just going to take my little peel there and slide these guys in. Now, if you can see those two that I just put in, one's a lot bigger than the other, but those were exactly the same size pieces, both 1/3 pound of dough. One of them I freshly kind of pushed together and made a fresh ball, so you could see that's what it would be like if you boiled it as soon as you made your bagel shape. That's like if you let it sit on the counter and rise for a few minutes, and we'll see what the difference is. So yeah, let's let these keep cooking. My mom informed me that when I was showing you the last little bit, I didn't have the fan off. So there, the fan is off. So these are some of the finished bagels, as you can see. We were going to talk about, this is the one that had risen a bit on the counter, and it makes it really nice. It's like a light bagel and everything. And this is the one that I made, and it didn't really have time. So it's a roll, so it's going to be good for a bagel breakfast. I have just a couple left in the oven. They only have like 3 or 4 minutes left. And it's also time for a nice little yummy treat. As you can see, my counter's all cleaned off now. And if there's one thing that I could share with people, it would be that when you're making bread, like I'm kind of lazy sometimes when I'm cooking and I'll leave dishes in the sink and all that. But when you're making bread, clean up as you go. Clean up everything as you go. Scrub out your bowls as soon as you're done with them. If you let it stay, it will harden on and you will curse yourself. You want to use soap, and my mom uses cold water. I do it right away. I find a scrubby pad and soap and some warm water. Immediately, just do it straight away and you're good to go. So let's make Laura a little treat. See how it looks on the inside. Now with most bread you want to wait until it's cooled before you cut it, but a bagel is different. You can give it a few minutes. Oh, look at that. So it's a 12 grain. There's the outside. I'm actually going to put it in a toaster, so let's see what happens. All right, so bagel is toasted. I have trusty cream cheese. I've got some herb and garlic, because how can you say no to herb and garlic on an everything bagel? We're going to take it. It's nicely toasted. Now, when these are fresh and warm, you don't even need to toast them because they're warm and they taste delicious with the cream cheese or butter even on them. But I like that extra little bit of crisp without it getting burnt. So, and I'm pretty generous. Unlike some local coffee shops that like to put a scoop on and then smush it instead of spreading it. You guys know who I'm talking about. Certain hockey playing chain. So I have started making most of my bagels. I still haven't figured out how to make things like blueberry bagels, because in order to get the blueberry into the bagel, you're going to smush the blueberry an awful lot. However, I found that since I started making my own, I really cannot go back to eating ones like from Tim Hortons and stuff. They're just not, I know it sounds super pretentious, they're just not good enough. They don't taste yummy enough and they have a weird texture compared. Whereas this has a nice, let's get this so you can see. This has a really nice, it's a bready texture, but it's also just that slightly chewiness that you get with the bagel, but the crispy outside, but not like hard. And then with the toppings, the everything topping, you get that really nice garlicky taste and a bit of the bite of the onion, but the poppy seed and the sesame seed, and it's just, it's all so good together. So I hope you enjoyed spending the morning with me while I put together the bagels for the week, and I hope you stay tuned. We'll have a video coming up on making the actual dough, and remember my philosophy, it's Lola, love often, laugh always, and take care, guys.